Hi, my name is Oyon Banerjee. I'm with ANSR and I'm a president at the firm. At ANSR, we help international Fortune 500 companies establish their brands and their global teams across the world. Today, I have a very special guest with us, Patrick Wright, who's traveled here from Melbourne. Patrick is the Chief Technology and Operations Officer at NAB. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Glad to be here, William.
Why don't we start with, having you tell us a little bit about yourself. You're not new to India. I mean, you've been to India for the last 20 years.
Yes.
You've seen the country evolve. You've
Yes.
seen the technology agenda in the country come from where it was back in the late 90s to where we are today. And would love to hear in terms of your perspectives and how you've seen this whole journey move ahead.
First of all, I'm really glad to be back. I have not been here since 2017 was my last trip. A bit of a journey starting at National Australia Bank, which didn't have an Indian presence, and then obviously COVID, which stopped everything for a couple of years. So I'm very glad to be back. And it's amazing every time I do come here how much things have changed. And I reflect on my first trip, which was more than 20 years ago. And I think I was describing to you earlier, it was, very different, a bit rough around the edges, but you could always see the potential. And now that potential has come to life. There's beautiful buildings, brilliant people, great companies, a lovely startup community. It's just wonderful to see what's happened to this country. So glad to be here.
Awesome. And when you say that the country has changed a bit, I think so you're being very subtle.
Yes. Changed a lot.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Right?
Yes, that's right.
You can't recognize the two countries, the country from back in the 90s and the country from today.
Well, where we're sitting today was a field. There was nothing here.
Absolutely.
And if there had been a building, maybe there would have been one building all by itself, surrounded by a fence with a generator in the back because the electricity wasn't terribly reliable. It's changed a lot. And now you can just feel the country's coming into its own.
Yeah. Patrick, if you think about the National Australian Bank, it's a household name in Australia.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's the largest commercial bank. From a B2C standpoint, every household knows NAB. But when you talk about India, I think so it's a fairly new phenomenon. I mean, You're about a year old in the country right now, and of course growing rapidly. Tell us a little bit about, both the bank as well as just the broader strategy, for the bank in terms of global teams, your overall strategy. What do you want the bank to stand for?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for asking. It's a 170-year-old institution. It is Australia's largest business bank, and that's our core business. So we are here to back Australia's businesses to serve and help communities prosper. We really believe fundamentally that is what we do best. And it's not that we don't do other businesses, but our core is our business bank. It's where we put most of our capital and most of our mind share. We refreshed our strategy about 3 years ago. When our current CEO came into the company, and it wasn't a huge redirection, but it was a bit of a refresh. And one of the things we decided at that moment was to have twin peaks at the top of our strategy, which was customers and colleagues. And we think it's important because some companies like Salesforce have put colleagues at the top. Other companies such as Amazon have put customers at the top. We actually thought both were important. And we think great, highly engaged, highly motivated colleagues will deliver better for customers. And so we think it's important that they both share in our twin peaks, and it's where we as a management team put our mind to it. In terms of global workforce, Australia was closed, like this country, was closed for 2 years. And there just aren't enough people with all the right skills, number one. Number two is we've been on a journey of insourcing at National Australia Bank. When I arrived, my division had 70% of its workforce outsourced. And it was with third parties, we'd lost control. And in fact, the people who were still at NAB at the time, they weren't technologists. They were outsourced managers. And they didn't have the skills, and they didn't have the drive, the determination to actually shape our IT agenda. And I think it's so important in the 21st century that you have people who can do that. So we've been on a big journey to take a lot of the work back from third parties. We will always have vendors, but here less of them. So we've taken it from 70% outsourced to just about 40% outsourced. We'd like that to settle around 25, maybe 20%. But the rest of the workforce, we really want to be our people who believe in our Twin Peaks, love our company, love our mission, love our values. And part of what we're trying to do here in India is to set up a captive team of people who are our people, career-minded, focused on delivering for our customers and colleagues.
Patrick, it's been 5 years right now you've been with the bank. And I think so if you just try and take a step back and look at everything you've accomplished and the aspiration that you just laid out, in terms of insourcing, looking at being technologists at heart, driving the fundamental transformation of the bank from being a brick and mortar bank to a highly agile, a very digital native bank. I mean, you've done some things which are very audacious, right? I mean, you've taken thousands of applications, you've cloudified them, you put them on the public cloud. I mean, you have mammoth teams that are scattered around the globe. Tell us a little bit about, how's the journey been so far? I mean, I know you spoke about, really establishing a center and having the core of the technology internal to the bank. But obviously, it's going to be a bit of a hybrid world, right? I mean, there are things that you would do very well internally, and there are things you would rely on partners.
Correct. Yeah.
Walk us through your thought process on that.
So I'll start with the first part of the question, which is the journey. They're always harder than you think they're going to be when you start. And I had a whole very long list of ambitions I wanted to achieve when I got the board to agree to our strategy in 2018. I fell short in a few places, which is fine. You just pick yourself up and keep going. We overachieved in others. I think the cloud journey is one where we probably overachieved. And we now have 70% of the company on the public cloud, 70.4%, I think is the number I saw over the weekend, which is remarkable. And I'm incredibly proud of the teams and what they've done. When I look forward to the next couple of years, I think it's really about bringing our business ambition to life. So a lot of what we've done up until now is to stabilize, cloudify, and in essence, prepare ourselves for what will be the really exciting part of the journey. And I think now this next chapter is really about taking these capabilities we've stood up in the cloud, taking the engineers that we brought in-house, taking the workforce that we have now that's very committed to our strategic ambitions, and really accelerating our customer and colleague outcomes. And we're very excited by a handful of things that we've got underway, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't. But we think we've got a real winning combination here of capabilities that will deliver for our business.
I also hear that you've taken the bank from being, whatever it was from a brick and mortar standpoint to almost 85, 90% completely digitalized.
Yeah, 90%.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, 90% of our customer interactions are digital nowadays. And obviously, I think it's 92% even. And that's a huge change from where it was 5 or 10 years ago. We're not alone. There's nothing special about us in that regard. COVID helped solve that problem for many of us. But I do think it's a signal of where we have to invest. All of our customers their expectations have changed, and COVID obviously accelerated that. So we have to invest more to do more. One of the great things that we've done in the last year is we've put another group. Ross has put another group executive in to run digital and data, so to drive the digital and data ambition for the enterprise. And her name is Angie Mentis, and I just love working with her. She's a good friend, colleague of mine, and she's driving the business ambition. And obviously, we're providing the technology to help it go. But I think there's some great things that'll come out of that in the next year or so. Stay tuned.
I mean, I can see the glint in your eyes, Patrick, and you're clearly being modest in terms of what you've accomplished in the last 5 years. But I think so if you just think about the journey that you've taken, you set up Vietnam, about 2-3 years back. I believe it was 2019.
2019, yes.
Right. And you've now embarked on this very audacious goal in terms of using India as one of the similar innovation centers. What role would you really like, centers like India and Vietnam to play for you in the mid to long haul?
So first of all, a continued source of talent to help us continue our insourcing journey. We really believe fundamentally that, again, having people who are our employees, our colleagues, believe in our vision, they'll just do better. So that's an important part of the journey. When we named these centers, we could have called them anything, but we put the word innovation in there on purpose because that's our ambition. We want innovation to happen here. We actually want innovation to happen in Melbourne. We want it to happen in Sydney. We want it to happen in London, New York, wherever we have our people, we want there to be innovation. But these centers will operate at such scale. And I believe actually a lot of companies who come to markets like India and Vietnam, in particular, view them as offshoring centers, and we don't. We view them as our centers, our people, and we want all work to happen here. We want innovation to happen here. We want product development to happen here. We want great things to happen here, and to build a center where people can have a long-term career, where they can feel like they're doing meaningful work over a very sustained and long period of time. You have to anchor them on a vision of this isn't just about work. This is about innovating as well. And I think every person at our company has a role to play in innovation, and the name was chosen on purpose.
Absolutely. NICI for short.
NICI for short, N-I-C-I. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, you've kind of stated this very perfectly, right? I mean, the I in NICI for innovation. And if you really look at, just the plethora of talent that's available in this market, I mean, virtually all your peers right now are saying that how do I really leverage the talent?
That's right.
And do cutting edge work. So, but if I just again reflect back, in terms of the last, 3-4 quarters, from the time you first started thinking about this when COVID struck us, I think so we are, knock on wood, fairly and squarely out of COVID right now.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, we all hope so.
I think we all hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think so again. I mean, just talking about establishing the brand called NAB, establishing the early the early center called NICI, starting to get colleagues in by the hundreds, who are doing core tech work, core ops work. I mean, we're talking about your technology COEs being everything from the cloud COE and the digital and the data and the analytics COE to potentially AI and ML is the next frontier that you're going to be doing out here, right?
Yeah.
How did you achieve so much in such little time?
Well, obviously it's all about the people you bring on, right? So we've got a great team here, and many of them had just started, just with the leadership team here in India a couple of hours ago. A fantastic team that's deeply committed to the same cause. On the ground, they're the ones who make it happen. And, I think it's hard for a person like me in Melbourne to do anything other than to clear obstacles and allow the team here to do what they need to do to be really successful. I think it would be a waste of our time and effort if we just came to India and hired people without tapping into the talent in different ways, whether that's working with the government or working with the startup community or working with other companies that are headquartered here and really understanding the capability here. India is such a rich country filled with incredible talent. How do you harness that for the betterment of our company? And look, we will have a hard time establishing a brand for ourselves here. That takes time. But I'm confident we can do it because we believe that with the right leadership team, the right type of work, obviously you've got to pay the right and have the right benefits and the right work environment. All those things matter. But it is really about the people that you'll work for. So if you're a young Indian man or woman that want to come work at NAB, it's about working for people that you respect, that you like, that will nurture and give you time and space to grow as an individual, that they'll give you meaningful work, allow you to explore things outside of what might just be mechanical or robotic activities, or really try and make whatever it is you're doing different or better, or to innovate in products or capabilities for our colleagues and customers. That is what people want. And it's true everywhere. It doesn't matter what country you're in. You could be in Australia, you could be in America, you could be in India, you could be in Turkey. It doesn't matter. Human beings are the same. They want to work for people they respect. They want to work with people they love, and they want to do great things. And they want to have an impact on whatever business it is they're supporting. And I think that it's on us to create that environment. And as we do that, our brand will grow. And I know it because not everyone can do it, but I'm confident we can.
And look, I mean, we feel very privileged, here at ANSR in terms of really teaming up with you and your leadership team out here.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we've accomplished. And I think so we are in early days of setting up the brand called NAB and NICI and all of that. But if I just look at, the ability for us to have attracted the kind of talent that we have attracted, I mean, it is absolutely remarkable. Which gets me to the point that, if you were to fast forward the clock the next 18, 24 months, and, one could, I mean, you mentioned this earlier on, that this is really not about outsourcing. It's really not about staff augmentation. It's about core tech. It's about core ops. It's about building platforms.
Correct.
And taking the bank to its next, frontier from a digitalization standpoint. But what's your vision, for Nikki, and what role do you see Nikki playing? I mean, it is a given that technology will come from here. But if you were to just fast forward the clock, 24 months later, what aspiration do you have and that you're going to be setting for your leadership team here in India?
Well, I think just at the most fundamental level, how do I make it feel like and act like and be seen like just another building down the road in Melbourne?
Absolutely.
I want the people here and the people in Melbourne to see the people here as this is just another extension of our company.
It's another floor.
It's another floor, another building. They're right around the corner. It feels that way. And I think one thing that COVID taught us is people can work in that way. And all of us did Zoom throughout COVID. It actually didn't matter where people were. And I think it created an opportunity for us to do things maybe a bit differently. 5-10 years ago, when I was working with the teams in India, one of my previous employers, we were on the phone all the time. We had speaker phones, and sometimes they didn't work, and you couldn't quite hear people. And you might get a video conference from time to time, but those were quite rare. And now everything's on video, and anybody can be anywhere, and it doesn't matter where in the world they are. They can collaborate in a way they couldn't before. So I do think it's quite possible here, but it is about hiring people that are seen as peers by the Australian colleagues, and given work and doing work that is the same as what would happen anywhere in the world, and allowing the people who have the work here to innovate just as they would if they were in London or Melbourne. It doesn't matter. So seeing it as an extension, another floor, another building of the core company is absolutely our ambition. I don't think it'll take us 2 years to get there. I think actually we might get there sooner.
You said it very well, Patrick, right? I mean, it's an extension of, 395 Melbourne, it's an extension of what you do in Vietnam, in Australia, wherever else in the world. And if you really talk about the center here in India, it's going to be about living the value and the purpose of National Australian Bank out here. And I really like the ambition that you're setting for everybody on the team out here, that it's not a 24-month journey, but it's potentially a 2-quarter journey, right?
Yeah.
So, which is absolutely fantastic. I'll maybe shift to something a little less formal,
Yeah.
and just for our audience to get to know you a bit better. I mean, I think so behind this very astute technologist lies somebody who's an absolute passionate Game of Thrones fan.
I do love Game of Thrones, yes.
And
I don't know who told you that.
We could take this in 5 different directions. But if you just reflect back on, just the story, I must admit that I know nothing about Game of Thrones. I'm absolutely ignorant about it.
Yeah.
But are there any things that you picked up from that, which you applied to your business life? Or do you watch it purely for pleasure? Has there been an epiphany moment that you've had?
Oh,
Anything at all?
yeah. I don't know how I'd apply it to business life. Sometimes work is like a Game of Thrones. And what everyone means by that is, if you haven't watched the show, is there's lots of kings and queens all fighting to be kings and queens. And sometimes there is a bit of that. I think for me, I'm really not a Game of Thrones person. I actually enjoy what I do. I enjoy being in the back office. I enjoy running technology and operations. I don't have to be on the newspaper. I don't have to be in the storyline. It just doesn't matter to me that much. And I'd rather drive really good outcomes in the back. So maybe the thing I'd take away is I don't want to be in the Game of Thrones, even though I love the show. I think Game of Thrones and work is something I'd prefer not to be a part of. It's probably the one thing. Maybe just to share one more thing, I do have 6 children and a lovely wife, and the way you raise 6 children is with a lovely wife, and I try my best, but she's just absolutely wonderful. So I'll probably add that bit in.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Children, I mean, that's pretty much, our way of relaxing, right?
That's right.
I totally get that bit. Yeah, but no, look, Patrick, I mean, it's fantastic what you've set out to do out here, and I wish you the very best. And I think so there is a very exciting time ahead for Nikki, for the bank here in India. And, all the best to you and your entire leadership team.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I'd just like to say one thing. I remember when I got a phone call from one of my colleagues when we were still in lockdown in Melbourne, and we were starting up our India project, and he said, "ANSR," and I said, "Who's ANSR?" And it was one of the best conversations I've had, because we could not have done this without you and your team. So I just wanted to say my personal thanks, because I know it's been very challenging to help us and enable us to really get our company going here in India. Couldn't have done it without you. So I just want to say my personal thanks to you.
No, that's absolutely very, very kind of you. And I believe that our partnership has just about started.
Yes.
I mean, we've made a very small dent so far, but it's a long road ahead of us. And we absolutely look forward to the privilege of continuing to work with you and your entire team.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. Real pleasure.
Yeah, real pleasure.
Thanks.
NAB, more than money.